Hey guys, Edward here from Edward279, the mixed content creator. Genetics. It's one of the most prominent topics mentioned as a diversion in my videos. But this is one of the only videos in which genetics is not just a diversion from the main subject, but the main subject. In today's video, we'll be talking about 4 different genetic units, or whatever you call them. DNA, genes, alleles, and chromosomes. So, what are all of those whatever you call them mentioned? And what are the differences? Watch this video to find out. Starting off this video on a very basic note, let's talk DNA. Now, the term DNA is actually an acronym, specifically for deoxyribonucleic acid. Now that's so long, it's no wonder why many would much rather use the term DNA. And no, despite what I used to believe up until I started researching this video, DNA is not a type of protein. Instead, DNA is what's known as a polymer, any of a series of either natural or synthetic substances that are composed of very large, by molecular standards, molecules that are made by linking multiple smaller units called monomers together. Other examples of polymers are both synthetic polymers, like the ones that make plastics so goddamn tough, and naturally occurring ones, like cellulose. Found in many species of plants, and not just trees which have a lot of cellulose, as well as another plant polymer called lignin in their wood either, but also many plants which you probably eat on a regular basis, like apples, corn, and legumes such as beans and peas. Getting back on track with the main subject matter, however, the structure of DNA takes the shape of a double helix, which one could describe as a twisted ladder shape for those of you who don't speak science. This polymer's building blocks are what's known as nucleotides, of which there are 3 parts in each one. A 5-carbon sugar, it's specifically deoxyribose in DNA, a phosphate group, and a nitrogenous base. And speaking of those nitrogenous bases, there are 4 that occur in DNA: adenine, guanine, thymine, and cytosine. These bases in turn form hydrogen bonds with each other, which in turn form the quote-unquote rungs of the twisted ladder, the structure of DNA. While the sugar phosphate backbone forms the backbone in the twisted ladder structure. However, each nucleotide can only bond with one other nucleotide. Adenine can only bond with thymine, guanine can only bond with cytosine, thymine can only bond with adenine, and cytosine can only bond with guanine. To put that into a picture, I give you this. Now, this picture is very clearly color-coded, with the phosphate backbone that makes up the, backbone of the twisted ladder, double helix structure of DNA, being color-coded in yellow, and the various nitrogenous bases that form the quote-unquote rungs of this twisted ladder in various colors. And while the bonds between the sugar phosphate backbone and its nitrogenous bases may or may not be easy to see, the bonds between nitrogenous bases is relatively easy to see. And like I said before, they are in bonded pairs. Adenine and thymine can only bond with each other. and thymine can only bond with each other. The same goes, and the exact same holds true for cytosine and guanine, as those two can only bond can also only bond with each other. These two, adenine and thymine and cytosine and guanine, are bonded pairs. And best believe that there is absolutely no interbonding between the two pairs of paired nitrogenous bases. But I also said I'd cover the purpose of DNA, so now I'll do exactly that. To put it simply, DNA is what's used in living organisms to carry the genetic instructions that guide the development, functioning, and eventually reproduction of all known living organisms, as well as many viruses as well. So, in short, DNA, short for deoxyribonucleic acid, takes the structure of a double helix, or twisted ladder if you're not into the whole scientific terms thing, and is a polymer composed of nucleotides, with the sugar phosphate part forming the backbone and the nitrogenous bases forming the quote-unquote rungs of this twisted ladder, which is a carrier of the genetic instructions that code for how practically anything that's alive that we know of, including you viewer watching this video, functions. Okay, so now that we've gotten the ins and outs of DNA over with, now there's 3 units that may seem interchangeable but really aren't. Genes, alleles, and chromosomes. So what makes each of these different from the other two? Let's start with genes. Genes are packages of DNA that code for an individual trait in an organism, like your blood type, an animal's fur color, or the size of a certain plant's fruit or seeds. Alleles, on the other hand, are just different variations of a single gene that are often formed randomly through mutation. One example of a gene with multiple alleles is the gene that codes for a human's blood type. Now, if I'm being brutally honest here, I do not actually know my blood type, and neither do quite a handful of Americans. But for all intensive purposes of this video, I'm going to say, hypothetically obviously, that I have type O blood, the most common blood type. Now, in this hypothetical scenario, the gene that I carry that codes for O blood is only one of multiple alleles that can code for a different blood type in a different person. For example, while I, only for the sake of explaining the concept, have the allele of the blood type gene that codes for O blood, someone else might have a different allele of the same gene that codes for type A, B, or even AB blood, which are the other 3 of the 4 main blood types. Now that we've covered genes, packages of DNA that code for a specific trait, and alleles, variations of a gene that arise with mutations, let's finally talk about the last term of this video, chromosomes. What are they, and how are they different from alleles? Well, I'm actually really glad you asked, because the difference is pretty big at that. Chromosomes are actually thread-like structures within cells that are specifically supposed to carry most or all of an organism's genetic material. In these chromosomes can hold hundreds of thousands of genes, and us humans would have a grand total of 23 chromosomes, except that we have an extra copy of each of our 23 chromosomes, accounting for 46 total in us humans. However, now I'm going to go on a little bit of a diversion, as not all organisms store their genes in the same place. In eukaryotic cells like yours, as well as the cells of other eukaryotes like fungi, protists, plants, and animals, most of the organism's genetic information is stored in the cell's nucleus. However, the cells of prokaryotes like bacteria and archaea don't have nuclei, or most organelles that eukaryotic cells have for that matter. So in prokaryotic cells, the vast majority of the DNA is stored in a central part of the cell called the nucleoid. So to almost end this video, provided you haven't already clicked off by now, because I know science absolutely bores some people straight to sleep, here's the short summary of defining genes, alleles, and chromosomes. Genes are packages of DNA that code for specific traits in an organism. Alleles are variations of a gene that arise through mutation, and chromosomes are structures within cells in which your genetic information is stored. So there you have it, the ins and outs of DNA explained, and the differences, definitions, and explanations of genes, alleles, and chromosomes. We hope you enjoyed this video. Like, share, and subscribe if you want to, and as always, I'll see you in the next video. Edward here from Edward279, the Mixed Content Creator, signing off.